You wake up and the first thing you think about is the thing you swore you would not do today. Maybe it is the bottle. Maybe it is the screen. Maybe it is the person who keeps destroying you. Maybe it is the food, the drug, the behavior, the pattern that you have tried to stop 100 times and failed 100 times, and you hate yourself for it. You hate the weakness. You hate the lack of control. You hate that you cannot just be normal, just be disciplined, just be strong enough to stop. You look at other people and they seem fine. They can have one drink and walk away. They can use their phone without losing 3 hours. They can eat without it becoming a war. They seem to have some internal mechanism that you are missing, some off switch that works for them but not for you. And you wonder what is wrong with you, why you cannot just stop, why you keep going back to the thing that is hurting you, why you know better but you do it anyway, why your life has become this exhausting cycle of promises and failures, of swearing this is the last time and then finding yourself right back where you started. And the shame of that is crushing. The shame of not being able to control yourself. The shame of choosing something you know is destroying you. The shame of watching your life get smaller and smaller while this one thing gets bigger and bigger until it is all you have, all you think about, all you are. But what if I told you that your addiction is not what you think it is? What if I told you that it is not about weakness or lack of willpower or moral failure? What if I told you that Freud, the man who spent his entire career mapping the hidden landscape of the human psyche, understood something about addiction that changes everything? He understood that addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the solution. It is a solution to a problem you do not even know you have. It is your psyche's desperate attempt to fix something that broke a long time ago. It is your soul calling out in the only language it knows, trying to tell you that something deep inside you is starving, something essential is missing, something unbearable is being avoided. Your addiction is not your enemy. Your addiction is a messenger, and until you understand what message it is trying to deliver, until you stop fighting the symptom and start addressing the wound underneath, you will keep going back. You will keep failing. You will keep hating yourself, because you are trying to solve the wrong problem. You are trying to stop the behavior when what you really need to do is understand why that behavior exists in the first place, why your psyche needs it, why your soul is calling for it, what void it is trying to fill, what pain it is trying to numb, what truth it is helping you avoid. Here is what nobody tells you about addiction. It is not random. It is not just a chemical dependency or a bad habit or a character flaw. Freud understood that everything the psyche does, it does for a reason. Every symptom, every behavior, every pattern, it is all meaningful. It is all communication. And addiction? Addiction is one of the loudest forms of communication there is. It is your unconscious mind screaming at you, trying to get your attention, trying to tell you that something is desperately wrong and has been wrong for a long time. Think about when your addiction started. Really think about it. Not just when you first picked up the substance or started the behavior, but when you first discovered that it worked. When you first felt that relief, that escape, that moment of not having to feel what you were feeling or be who you were being. What was happening in your life then? What were you running from? What pain were you in that you could not name, could not process, could not bear to face? Because that is where your addiction was born. Not in the substance itself, not in the behavior itself, but in that moment when you discovered that this thing, this one thing, could make the unbearable temporarily bearable, could silence the noise in your head, could fill the emptiness in your chest, could give you a few hours, a few minutes, a few seconds of relief from the weight of being yourself. Freud called this the pleasure principle, the idea that the psyche is driven to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But he understood that it is not really about pleasure in the way we usually think of it. It is about the avoidance of psychological pain. It is about finding some way, any way, to escape from feelings and thoughts and truths that the conscious mind cannot handle. And when you cannot handle something consciously, when something is too painful or too threatening or too overwhelming to face directly, the unconscious finds another way. It creates a symptom. It develops a pattern. It builds a structure that allows you to survive. And that structure is your addiction. It is not weakness. It is not failure. It is survival. It is your psyche doing the best it can with the resources it has. It is your soul trying to keep you alive when part of you wants to disappear. And that is why fighting it does not work. That is why willpower is not enough. That is why you can know intellectually that you need to stop and still find yourself doing it again. Because you are not fighting a habit. You are fighting a survival mechanism. You are trying to dismantle the very thing that your psyche believes is keeping you alive. Let me ask you something. What feeling are you most afraid of? What emotion, if you really let yourself feel it fully, do you think would destroy you? Is it grief? Is it rage? Is it shame? Is it the terror of your own emptiness? Is it the recognition that you are alone, that nobody really sees you, that you might not matter the way you need to matter? Whatever that feeling is, your addiction exists to keep you from feeling it. That is its job. That is why your psyche created it. Freud talked about defense mechanisms, all the ways the mind protects itself from unbearable reality. Denial, repression, projection, rationalization. These are all ways we avoid facing truths that would threaten our sense of self. And addiction? Addiction is the ultimate defense mechanism. It is a fortress built around the most vulnerable part of you, the part that carries wounds you have never processed, traumas you have never named, losses you have never grieved, needs you have never met. And as long as you are focused on the addiction, as long as you are caught in the cycle of using and hating yourself for using, you do not have to look at what is underneath. You do not have to face the real pain. The addiction becomes both the problem and the distraction from the problem. It keeps you so busy, so consumed, so focused on managing it, that you never have to deal with the thing it is protecting you from. If you are starting to recognize yourself in this, if something is shifting in how you understand your own struggle, show your support by liking this video, not just for the algorithm, but as a marker for yourself, as a moment of recognition that maybe, just maybe, you have been fighting the wrong battle. Let me pause here for a moment because I need to ask you something that matters. Have you ever felt like you are living two lives at once? The one everyone sees, where you smile and function and pretend everything is fine, and the one inside your head, where you are struggling, confused, doubting every choice you make. That split, that exhausting performance of being okay when you are not, it is something Freud understood deeply. And I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are human. And what you are feeling right now, this exact struggle you are carrying, someone else watching this video is feeling it too. They are sitting there thinking they are the only one, just like you might be thinking right now. So I am going to ask you to do something that might feel vulnerable, but it is important. Go down to the comments right now and type this exact phrase, I feel this. Just those 3 words. I feel this. You do not need to explain. You do not need to write your whole story. Just let those words be your voice today. Because when you do that, something powerful happens. The person scrolling through these comments, the one who feels completely alone in their pain, they are going to see your comment. And for the first time in maybe days, weeks, or months, they are going to realize they are not alone either. Your 3 words might be the thing that helps them breathe a little easier tonight. This is not just about engagement. This is about connection. This is about breaking the silence that keeps us isolated in our suffering. Freud built his entire life's work on one simple truth. We heal when we speak what has been hidden. So speak it now. Go to the comments. Type I feel this, and know that by doing so you are not just helping yourself. You are helping every single person who needs to know that what they feel is real, is valid, and is shared. Do it now. I will wait. Now let me tell you what Freud discovered about why addiction is so hard to break. It is not just about the substance or the behavior. It is about what he called repetition compulsion. The psyche's tendency to repeat patterns, especially painful ones, even when we consciously want something different. And why would we do that? Why would we repeat something that hurts us? Because the unconscious is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to heal you. It keeps bringing you back to the original wound, giving you opportunities to resolve it, to do it differently this time, to finally get the outcome you needed back then, but never received. Your addiction is a repetition of something. Maybe it is the chaos you grew up in, and using recreates that familiar feeling of being out of control. Maybe it is the emotional abandonment you experienced, and your substance of choice gives you the numbness you learned to associate with safety. Maybe it is the way you were never allowed to have needs, and your addiction is the one place where you let yourself want something, even if that wanting is destroying you. The pattern is trying to resolve itself. Your psyche keeps putting you in the same situation, hoping this time will be different. Hoping this time you will find another way through. But you cannot find another way through until you understand what situation you are actually in, until you see the original wound that the addiction is trying to heal. Here is the part that will probably make you uncomfortable. Your addiction serves you. I know you do not want to hear that. I know it feels wrong to say that something destroying your life is serving you. But Freud would tell you to ask, what would happen if you stopped? Really stopped, permanently? What would you have to face then? What feelings would surface? What truths would you have to acknowledge? What would you have to change about your life, your relationships, your sense of self? Because your addiction is not just avoiding pain. It is also avoiding growth. It is keeping you stuck in a version of yourself that feels safe even though it is suffocating you. It is preventing you from having to become someone new. Someone who has to deal with reality directly. Someone who has to feel everything without a buffer. And that is terrifying. That is why when people get sober or break an addiction, they often feel worse before they feel better. Because suddenly all the feelings that were being medicated are right there. All the truths that were being avoided are unavoidable. All the emptiness that was being filled artificially is gaping and raw. The addiction was doing its job. It was keeping you functional enough to survive, and now you have to learn how to survive without it. You have to develop new ways of coping, new ways of processing emotion, new ways of being in the world. You have to grow up in ways you have been able to avoid, and your psyche resists that. Your psyche wants to go back to what worked, even if what worked was slowly killing you. Freud also understood something else about addiction. He understood the death drive. The part of the psyche that is drawn toward destruction, toward the end of tension, toward nothingness, and in every addiction, there is some element of that. Some part of you that wants to disappear, some part of you that is so tired of the struggle, so exhausted by the performance of being alive, that it would rather just not be. Your addiction gives you a taste of that, a temporary dissolution of the self, a few hours where you do not have to be you anymore, where the boundaries of your identity blur and you can escape the prison of your own consciousness. That is part of why it feels so good, not just because of the chemical high or the behavioral satisfaction, but because it offers a brief reprieve from the burden of being a self, from having to maintain an identity, from having to carry your history and your wounds and your failures everywhere you go. In those moments of using, you get to forget, you get to be nobody. And for someone who finds being somebody exhausting, that is an incredible relief. But here's the problem. That temporary death never resolves anything, it just postpones. And when you come back, when the high wears off, you are still you, still carrying everything you were trying to escape. Except now you also have the shame of having used again, the guilt of having broken your promise to yourself again, the evidence that you cannot control yourself, cannot change, cannot be better. So the wound gets deeper, the need for escape gets stronger, and the cycle continues. You already know this, but we're not ready to understand ourselves alone. The human mind is vast, complex, and often frightening to explore without guidance. If this content is helping you see yourself more clearly, if these insights about Freud's work are bringing light to parts of yourself you've kept hidden, then consider subscribing to this channel. This is not just another psychology channel. This is a space where we explore the depths of human nature together, where we take the most profound concepts from psychoanalysis and make them accessible, practical, and deeply personal. Every video here is designed to help you understand not just theory, but yourself, your patterns, your fears, your desires, the invisible forces that have been shaping your choices without your awareness. When you subscribe, you are making a commitment to yourself. You are saying that you are ready to look deeper, to understand more, to stop running from the truth of who you are. And I promise you this, I will be here every week, bringing you insights that matter, explanations that actually make sense, and perspectives that can genuinely change how you see yourself and the world around you. This journey of self-understanding is not easy. Freud knew this. He spent his entire life mapping the human psyche precisely because he understood how lost we can feel inside our own minds. But you do not have to walk this path alone. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, become part of a community of people who have decided that understanding themselves is worth the discomfort, worth the effort, worth the time. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And that relationship deserves your attention, your curiosity, and your courage. So subscribe now and let's continue this exploration together. Your future self will thank you for taking this step today. So what does it mean that addiction is the call of the soul? It means that underneath the compulsion, underneath the chemicals, underneath the behavior, there is a part of you that is trying to tell you something essential. Your soul, your deepest self, the part of you that knows what you really need even when your conscious mind has forgotten, that part is calling out. It is saying, I am in pain. I am lonely. I am empty. I'm exhausted. I am terrified. I need something I am not getting. I have been carrying something too heavy for too long. I am trying to survive the only way I know how. And addiction is the language it uses. Not because addiction is good. Not because addiction is the answer. But because addiction is what happens when the soul cannot get your attention any other way. When you have ignored it, suppressed it, rationalized it away for so long that it has to scream. And the scream manifests as compulsion, as craving, as the need for the substance or the behavior that will quiet the unbearable noise of unmet needs. Freud would tell you that the path out of addiction is not about fighting harder. It is about listening. It is about asking, what is my addiction trying to tell me? What need is it trying to meet? What pain is it trying to soothe? What part of me has been starving for so long that this is the only food I can find? And then, instead of hating yourself for the addiction, instead of battling it with willpower alone, you start to address the actual need. You start to feed the actual hunger. You start to heal the actual wound. Maybe your addiction is telling you that you need connection, but you have been isolating yourself because vulnerability feels too dangerous. Maybe it is telling you that you need purpose, but you have been living according to someone else's script. Maybe it is telling you that you need to grieve something you have never let yourself grieve. Maybe it is telling you that you are living in circumstances that are destroying you, and you need to change your life in ways that terrify you. Whatever it is, your addiction knows. Your unconscious knows. Your soul knows. And it will keep calling until you finally. This does not mean recovery is easy. Freud never promised easy. He never said that understanding your patterns would make them simple to change. He said that consciousness is the first step, that you cannot transform what you cannot see. So see your addiction for what it is. Not a moral failure, not a weakness, not proof that you are broken beyond repair, but a symptom, a signal, a desperate communication from the deepest part of yourself that something needs attention, something needs healing, something needs to change. And once you see that, once you understand that, the work can begin. The real work. Not the work of white-knuckling your way through sobriety, but the work of addressing the void that the addiction was trying to fill. The work of processing the pain that the addiction was helping you avoid. The work of building a life where your soul does not need to scream to be heard. Where your needs are met in ways that nourish you instead of destroying you. Where you are not running from yourself but learning to be yourself, even when being yourself is uncomfortable. Here is what I want you to understand as we close. You are not your addiction. You are the person underneath the addiction. The person who is in pain. The person who is trying to survive. The person whose soul is calling out for something real. Something healing. Something that will actually satisfy the hunger, instead of just temporarily numbing it. And that person? That person is worth fighting for. Not fighting against the addiction with shame and willpower, but fighting for the deeper healing that makes the addiction unnecessary. Fighting for the life where you do not need to escape from yourself, because being yourself is finally tolerable, maybe even eventually good. That is the promise. Not that recovery will be easy or quick or linear, but that it is possible. That the soul that is calling through your addiction can also guide you to what you actually need. That the psyche that created the symptom also contains the resources for healing. That you are not broken beyond repair. You are human. You are wounded. You are trying to survive. And survival is possible without the thing that has been keeping you captive. But it requires you to listen. To stop fighting the messenger and start hearing the message. To stop hating yourself and start understanding yourself. To stop trying to force your way out of addiction and start healing your way out. So let me ask you this. What is your addiction trying to tell you? If you could hear its message clearly, without the shame, without the judgment, without the self-hatred, what would it say? What need has gone unmet for so long that your psyche had to find this desperate solution? What would have to change in your life for that need to be met in a healthier way? Sit with those questions. Do not rush to answer them. Let them work on you. Let them open something. Because those questions are the beginning of the real healing. Those questions are how you start to respond to the call of your soul instead of just suffering through the symptom. Share this video with someone who is struggling with addiction. Someone who has been hating themselves for something they do not fully understand. Someone who needs to know that their struggle is not about weakness, but about a wound that has not been seen yet. A need that has not been met yet. A message that has not been heard yet. And tell them you are not broken. You are calling out, and I hear you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being willing to look at this differently. Your addiction has been trying to tell you something. Maybe now you can start to listen, and maybe that listening is the first step toward the freedom you have been searching for.